Okay, when you're drawing a person, and I'm looking at a photograph that you can't see, it's actually off camera here, but I get the basic pose first. So I just look at it, I almost draw, it's almost a stick figure. I think, oh, the back curves this way, the head's tipped back, um, the legs, what are they doing? They come out like this. So I'm just drawing this, another leg here, and she's got an arm up here, another arm there. So that's really just capturing the gesture of the pose. Then I'm going to take it a little farther, and I would have done this lighter, except I'm trying to show it on camera, but I start to think, okay, but her leg really has more thickness to it. It's not just a straight line. Her foot comes down to a point. So here I'm just trying to decide. I look at the distance between things. Okay, so then she has a leg coming out here. And the foot comes off like that. And then up here to the back. And the front of her body comes up like that. So all these extra lines I really wouldn't have needed, but they help me establish where the legs and arms are to begin with. Then I know the arm comes up here, but I continue to refine it. So this all started with that loose, almost a stick figure. Her hands here, I'll work more on those later. And she's got another arm that you actually see coming up here. I know it goes very close to her face here. So the whole time I'm referring back to that photograph. Now if you were doing this from real life, of course you'd be looking at the person. And then her head is tipped almost away from us. Her ears right about here. And she's got this thing going in her hair. But I captured that much of it first, and I have the gesture. And then when I came back in the second time around, I really refined and gave thickness to the legs and arms. Then from there, I could spend a lot more time with it. Now I have the basic pose. So I can spend time with, well, you know, what exactly is her hair doing? Maybe I would fix, I can see that the curve of her back doesn't look quite right to me, so I can spend some time with it. But that's how I would do it from a photo or from life. Now, if I'm drawing from memory, I find it quite a bit harder to do that, but I start out with establishing, well, where's the head going to be? A human head's more of an egg shape. And I think, okay, shoulders, what's the back going to do? Hips. You know, I'm drawing this, you know, an arm up there. Put another arm here. This would be a very happy person who's waving. And a leg. Straight leg there, feet. So here I drew that same sort of a stick figure. Now I have trouble, I do a lot of drawing from memory, and not from memory, from photos and from real life, because to me, okay, I can check the proportions on this one. So half the human body from the head to where you bend at the waist, and then the other half of it is legs. And let's check that here. So where you bend at the waist, yep, so that's about right if her head was straightened out. So I can get that stuff right. I just find that when I'm actually looking at a real pose, I get a more interesting pose. But here, then I would do the same sort of thing. I would kind of flesh this out. I would figure out, oh, knee goes here. Here's a leg, calf, foot, knee. So I'm taking my stick figure and turning it into more of a person. And of course I don't need all this stuff in here eventually. The other thing to keep in mind as far as proportions go, the human head, the shoulders are about a head's width on either side, so that's another one people tend to get wrong. Arms from the shoulder to the elbow is the same as from the shoulder to the waist. And then from the elbow to the hand, the arms would hang down here. Your fingertips actually end up down there, but you can always check that as you go along. So, whatever the hands are doing. Hands get really tricky to draw. There can be a whole study on hands. Oops, what that line is. So I can still get a basic shape that looks correctly proportioned from my memory, but honestly, this is a much more interesting pose, and that I had the chance to look at that. I never would have thought to have put the arms in that way, because here I turned the shoulders forward. This was much more accessible for me to draw. So when I draw from memory, it tends to be taking the easier route. When I look at a person or draw from real life, I'm forced to draw poses that I might not have chosen on my own from my memory, and they're harder. But they're also way more interesting to look at. I love this tip back head. Expect her nose is right around there. You know, her eye. That whole tip back head thing's great. The arm across here, fun. You know, here I've got the shoulders facing forward. The face would be right here. You know, it's okay. But this is much more interesting. So that's one of those things about drawing from, when you do art as imitation, is drawing from some sort of a reference, at least until you get really good at it. And even then, I've drawn a lot of people, and yet I still will look at some sort of a photo, or I will look at, have a person pose for me, because I simply feel like I get something that's more interesting and challenging to me artistically than if I use poses I know already, and I know are easier. I know it's easier for me to draw the legs in this way. I know it's easier to do the shoulders forward, and it works. But keep that in mind with art as imitation. It's good to have a source.